saw how many times I tried to do this video, and you'd think I was a patient dude, that's for sure. Alright, let's roll. Hey everybody, it's Hitman from BlackOpsFishing.com. We're in the middle of a blizzard in Connecticut. Everything's kind of shut down today. It's still howling, and we got through the major part of everything, but there's no traveling really today. So I was using this opportunity to make a video that I've wanted to make for a long time, and that's ice fishing from novice to advanced. So I feel I'm qualified to do this tutorial. I've owned 3 tackle shops. One of them, we had a seminar room and we had pros come in. We had Brian Brosdahl in there at one time. I did a lot of seminars, but we had a lot of good ice fishermen come in and do seminars. So I learned a lot there about ice fishing, and other than that, I've been ice fishing since I was a little kid, learning everything I can. I also have more tournament wins, more money wins in ice fishing than open water. I can try to name them. I was in a tournament with 240 guys, and I got first place, $1,200, and my buddy got $800, second place. The second one is a good story, but I gotta just make it a short story. So there was 4 categories: bass, pickerel, perch, and crappie. And then other than that, they had something different I didn't usually see at a tournament. They had a prize for longest fish and a prize for heaviest fish. Anyway, I caught an eel 32 inches long, and that just began my day of slaying everybody. I caught every single category in that tournament. And then there's a funny part to the story. The tournament didn't go quite as planned, but I did win every single category in the tournament and won their raffle at the end. So that was pretty cool. Other than that, I have some pretty good substantial wins, like a $500 shopping spree at a really good outfitter store. I won from ice fishing, biggest bass. I won a Frabill ice hut that you pull over with a seat inside. I got that for biggest bass of the year at Outfitters. And then I got a $150 prize one year for second biggest bass of the year. And at tournaments I have some small wins, 50, 60. So I'm just saying, I can teach you ice fishing. There's a lot of good ice fishermen out there with a lot of techniques, and a lot of them know way more than me, but I'm certainly qualified to teach my followers what I know. And even an advanced guy might find something that I do that he can use. So stay tuned. So you're novice, you're going to go out and check the ice. You want a safety rope, a thick rope. Use a tow rope or something like that, not a clothesline. Something you can pull yourself back out of the ice with. Clip one side to yourself and tie the other side to a tree, a rock, your car bumper. Let your buddy hold it if you trust him. You're only trying to get out a few feet on the ice, and then you're going to take your tool, whatever it is, preferably a spud. This is what I suggest anybody tests the ice with, even if they have an auger with them. But if they're doing an ice test, it's nice to use a spud. So what you do is you can get to the edge of the ice. You can even still be on land and poke at the ice from there just to get an idea how it is. And don't forget, the edges of ices can have some layers and bubbles and still be safe just beyond that. So don't worry about that at first. Once you get 2 or 3 steps out on the ice and you make a good solid hole with your spud, or if you have to use an axe or whatever, you make your first hole, then you want to measure it. Hopefully it's 4 inches thick, and you're good to go. You might want to make a couple of test holes to feel perfectly safe, but you're probably on safe ice at that point. You want to measure the ice. You can use a tape measure, or just estimate it with your hand, or if you do have a scoop like one of these, you can get a scoop like this. This is to scoop the ice out of the hole. I have a few of these different ones I can show you, but here's an old-fashioned one. It's metal and it doesn't have any gradients on it to measure. But this one, you put in the hole and you pull it up, and then right there it's going to tell you you're in 7 inches, no, 6 inches of ice. So that's how you can measure with one of these. So you know you got 6 inches of ice. You just want to watch out for weak spots, areas where there's springs, rivers coming in, rivers going out. And just because you might see people on the ice, you still should check the ice. You don't know how they got on the ice, and you don't know if they're on safe ice. So that's another tip. You always want to check the ice. You know, just because you see a few people out there, that may not mean it's safe. But if you got to do it, you got to pack light. I mean, I usually have a 24-ounce Red Bull. I had to bring a 16. You got a hit, man. But we also have to be safe on the ice, and that means to carry picks, warm clothing, your safety rope, your cell phone, let people know where you are, hopefully you have a person with you, and cleats, because you can fall like a cartoon on slippery black ice. Your feet go right out from under you, and you'll hit your head. Your whole body, and I've done it. It's like you're doing a 360 in the air. Your feet come out from under you. It's bad, and it hurts. So cleats are a good thing on slippery ice. One good way for a novice to learn the ice is to go to a lake or a pond that has some ice fishing action going on it, or at least has recently had people on it. Then you can go out and explore, talk to the people. You'll be surprised how many times you can find a hole that's still open or can be kicked in with a boot or hit with the back of an axe. If you don't have an auger, you can always do that. And sometimes the holes get really iced up and they're not worth trying to reopen, so you'd make a new one near it. And when I say that, make a new one near it, that's another bonus to going to exploring a lake. If they had an ice fishing hole there, perhaps they knew that was a good place to fish because they knew the contours and knew the lake. So that's a good thing to look for. But you can also increase your detective work by, just say, here's an example of what you might find if you're reading, signs on the ice. You can see that a group maybe had a center spot. There's some coffee spills, and you can see the marks in the snow where they were centered, and they might have had their tip-ups all around, scattered around. And you can tell that nobody ran to these tip-ups, but these tip-ups over here is like a highway. They ran back and forth, back and forth. So that's a good place for you to start fishing, if you could find something like that. Another thing to do is to walk around and look at the holes for weeds, if you see green weeds, because you want to be fishing near green weeds for oxygen. And another thing is debris near a hole. I mean, a well-used hole where they're catching a lot of fish, there might be some blood, some scales, some pieces of bait, shiners, or frozen spikes around the hole. Unfortunately, there could be a little litter or cigarette butts or chewing tobacco. It's not always gross like that, but a lot of times you can find a good fishing hole just by looking at the ice like that and looking at people's holes. God. Hope I didn't say that a lot. So I think that's really a good way to do it, is to go out and explore the ice and look at the different holes and places where people were fishing. It would really improve your odds. Other than that, if you don't have a contour map and you're going out to fish a pond or whatever, and you fished it in the open water, then I would try right where you fished in the fall for a good place. The kind of lake that I'm thinking of is a lot of lakes that we have around here, like a 40-foot deep basin, maybe 24-foot deep basin. and a lot of scattered bays and shallow areas around the lake. So those shallow areas are where I'm going to usually fish, unless I'm fishing for a particular species in deeper water. But I find a lot of my action between 20 foot and 3 foot. So, and narrowing that down between 6 and 12 foot. A lot of action is in those areas, so that would be a good place to start. If you haven't fished at that lake or pond in open water, what you can do is try to read the lay of the land. You know, a big slope coming into the water is going to mean a deeper area in the water there, maybe a big drop off. Land that's flat, just coming to the water, is going to mean it's shallow over there in that area. Other things to look for are islands to fish around, rock piles that stick out of the water, logs that stick out of the water, trees that have fallen and reach, you know, a good way out into the water where it's still 8 feet deep. Those are excellent places, just like you would do in the fall. Those are excellent places to jig or set your tip up for multi-species fishing. So let's touch on augers just a little bit. It doesn't take much to have a dull auger, I'll tell you that much. I went out the other day and I had my power auger with me, and it wouldn't even cut a hole through the ice. And it didn't seem like it was running good, so I put the manual handle on it, which is fine, and it still wouldn't cut. And that's this Nils Master, and see, it's got a manual handle on it right now. And I do have, this is my, I thought was my good blade. My other one's worse, but it feels like it'll cut you, but it doesn't cut ice. It won't cut ice, and it doesn't take much so for a blade to not work. So if you borrow an auger and it's not cutting, it's probably the auger. The auger should cut through fast like butter. This is the one I brought for a backup. This was my favorite. I used to try to race power augers with this thing. The design was just awesome. This is an old Nils Master, and it was dull, so I couldn't make a hole. And I tried to find blades, I tried to find augers, everything. Cabela's was out of augers. Lots of phone calls, and I finally found an auger, and the funny thing was that was the only place that I could also find propane, so we could be prepared for the snowstorm. And so I took a ride in the snowstorm, and I went and got this Eskimo auger. These are $49, and this has a whole different blade set up. It's a decent auger for the money. I would have much rather found an auger with this type of blade system. I just really like it. Now, I looked all over for blades too, and I couldn't find them. And at the same store, in a closeout bin, I found these. Now, they look exact, and hopefully they're going to fit. I'm going to let you know, but these are laser. These are for the Strike Master. These are laser. This wasn't a Strike Master, but it's the same type of blade. And I think the Strike Master, I think they're $79. That might be a nice auger to go with if you can get it. And then remember, like this one's 8-inch hole. This one's a 6-inch hole. The 6-inch is going to be easier to make. If you don't have a jigging rod, you can easily make one by taking the top half of an old rod or the tip of an old broken rod. Take a couple of guides off so you have enough blank to work with, and drill a hole in a broomstick, place the rod in there and glue it in, and you have a jigging rod. You just tape on the reel. You can actually make these things too, a piece of broomstick, and you drill a hole and you hammer a big nail into there, a big spike, and then you sharpen it so that the nail head becomes a spike like this. And then you can put a piece of styrofoam over it for protection, and you make 2 of them, put a string on them, and you have these picks. Jigging poles. I like these ugly sticks now. A lot of people have a real sensitive pole or add a tip to it so they can use the micro jigs. But I'll show you, if I can add clips to this video like I'm hoping to, I'll show you clips using micro jigs with this, and I catch fish that are small, fish that are big. Jeez, look at that. species number 4. How cool is that? Four species. Another one. Little bucket mouth. See the little bucket mouth? Look at that. This is an ugly stick, ice fishing rod. It's a good one. 20 bucks for these, and they're really sturdy. I caught over 100 stripers from a boat on this rod right here one day. And I made a video of that, by the way.
There he is. Hey. Yeah! Winter stripers!
And here's another one that's a little shorter. And I got 2 different kind of reels to show you. So you either made that pole. If you made that pole, you're going to tape your reel onto the handle, or you're going to buy a ugly stick pole or some kind of jigging rod and mount your reel. You can get ice fishing line that'll work better in colder temperatures, or you might have some fresh line in your garage. If it's the proper pound test, you can try to use that. To know how deep it is, you take a sounder weight, and if you're using a jigging rod, you're going to have to hook it to your lure and let that go down to the bottom. You know, close your bail, and then there's no way to really mark it unless you bring a spool line to check your depths. You could do that for a beginner, I'm saying. So you just hook this to your lure, and you can walk back onto the snow and make a mark, and then count it with your feet, you know, and get an average. At least you're fishing about 14 feet down. So that gives you an idea. You're never going to feel the bottom good enough with just a jig or a spoon to figure out the depth. You're going to have to add a weight to it. And these come in much more in handy for tip-up fishing, which I will show you. This is an inline reel. This one here, this particular one, belonged to Brian Brosdahl, and I bought it from, but it's kind of cool. It's not a prototype. Frabill did have them on the market for a short time, and guys wanted them so bad, and this was like the last one in the country according to Bro, and he made me want it, and I bought it from him. It's got a clickable drag. It's made out of an alloy, but it's really cool. But the straight line reels, I believe, were invented so that your line will go down and stay straight without line twists. If you already fish, you're going to know that a spinning reel makes line twists. And when you're using a micro jig and monofilament and a spinning reel and you get line twists, your micro jig's going to spin around, and it's not going to be quite as desirable as one that's still and looks really nice. Now with good line and, you know, proper techniques, you can avoid a lot of that. If you have an underwater TV, you can see what your lure's doing, but just be aware that with a spinning reel, you're offering maybe spinning and not looking as delicious as one that's just sitting there, you know, jigging up and down. That's one of the beauties of the straight line combos. The other thing is you can use 1 pound, 2 pound tests, and it works really good. You don't get it all caught up. It's harder to use really, really light lines on a spinning reel because they'll get tangled. And these are cool. I like these. There's another one made out of plastic. Still got a clickable drag, same type of reel. So you probably already have a spinning reel. You're probably going to use a spinning reel. Don't be afraid of the line twist. Just be aware of it and try to make it, you know, not happen. Try to see what you can do to, you know, make your line really tight and straight and make it not twist. It's better. You're going to need lures or jigs, micro jigs, bigger lures for bigger fish. These are some lake trout. That's a butterfly jig for lake trout. That's a big Castmaster for lake trout. tail sucker strip made to look like a bass fishing pork in the old days. But it's just amazing how it looks. Deadly Dick. These are all big lake trout lures. Perch, Castmaster. And then that's when you're going to want to use, probably going to want to use the spinning reel anyway. So you can have a heavier line and fight a big fish. So these are tungsten. See that little guy? I think that's a Bros bug. Tungsten's way heavier and that'll go down a lot easier than some of the cheap jigs. If you get a pack of jigs at Walmart and ice fishing teardrops, they're probably not going to be tungsten. But remember, tungsten's going to help you because you can use a smaller jig. You can use much smaller, even smaller than this, and you still have the weight. And here's like a kind of a spoon. These are really good. Good for panfish and perch. Catch big gills on those. Put a spike on there. Spike's like a grub. The other grubs are mousies and waxworms that we get anyway. Mousies, waxworms, and spikes. Mousie's like also a grub, but it has a little tail on it. Tungsten, it's a little fat body lure. Kind of like a spoon, but a fat body. Like a big jig. These are good for perch. These little metal lures with the chain, I don't know what they're called, but I slay perch on these. And I've used these under my jigging rods that I leave stationary in my holders because the shiner can move around on that little chain. Minnow, that's why I like to put a minnow, or you can put a spike or a grub, anything like that on there. I got a bunch of those. Here's another one. Those are good lures. And this is just a few of what I have. I have tons of stuff, but here's a bigger tungsten bug. Just like you can for other fish, but they come the good ones, you only get a few in a pack, and they're good. I mean, some of these look like little baby. These all look like a mousie. That one looks like a kind of like a fly. And I mean, they're kind of expensive in that you only get a few in a pack usually, and they cost a few bucks. They're not super cheap. In that fact, there we go. That's cool. I like those shrimp. See the action they have. I just found out I'm going to have to make this a few-part video. It's just, I got a lot of stuff I want to tell you, so I'm going to do a part 1 and end it right around here, and then I'm going to continue with the rest of the stuff. I don't write a script, so I didn't know it wasn't going to fit, but I had more jigging stuff and tip-up techniques and a tip-up invention of my own.
Just over 11 inches thick.